We're talking about fairness today, and we want to make sure that we teach our employees, our children, and those we're responsible really for shepherding in our lives in whatever way that comes to you. We want to teach them that there's something very important about valuing competition, about valuing free markets, about recognizing that sometimes things in life aren't fair, but it doesn't give you an excuse, because those with excuses, as you know, don't do as well as those who take responsibility and make the best of situation. Today's topic, the destructive F-bomb, the destructive lie of fairness in our culture. We hear it all the time, the age gap, the gender gap, the wage gap. Which gap do you want to talk about today? Well, we're going to blow it all out today, and we're going to start with the lie of the gender gap. Are women treated unfairly in the workplace compared to men? Well, Carrie Lukas with Independent Women's Forum has a few things to say on that topic. Welcome, Carrie.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for being with us. All right, the first thing I want to start with is just a straight up question, Carrie. Is there such a thing as the gender gap? I mean, to most of the society, that's a given. Women, we have it rough. We need to whine and complain. We don't get the same pay. We work more. Tell us, how bad is it out there?
You know, it's really interesting because there absolutely is a statistic that will show you that on average, women earn less money than men. But the statistic you hear so often, and kind of the complaint, is that men make less that women make less than men do for the same work. And that's just not what the statistics are showing. The truth is that men and women tend to gravitate towards different jobs. Women tend to work fewer hours than men, even if they are working full time. They take more time out of the workforce. They make a lot of decisions, in other words, that reduce how much money they take home in pay. And that's the main cause of those statistical differences. So, you know, I do think this is important information for women to have, because it's better to know that the choices you make are what are determining how much you earn, rather than feel like you're a helpless victim and society is just out to get you.
Huh. Well, because I would rather work a job that I love every day than work a job that makes more money. And I think a lot of women make that choice. And do we really want to scream about parity and thrust ourselves into jobs that maybe we don't love as much, because there's a quality of life to consider here?
Well, you know, and that's absolutely the case. I think one of the biggest kind of misunderstandings in the conversation about the wage gap is there's this presumption, when you hear about it talked about in the media, when the left kind of laments this idea, they paint this picture as if men are all sitting in boardrooms and being paid, you know, smoking cigars and being paid all this money, and you know, their coworker women are getting paid much less. But the truth is that when you look at the jobs that men and women tend to do, and kind of the differences in the types of jobs that men and women gravitate towards, and men are out there doing a lot of dirty, distasteful, and sometimes physically grueling jobs. They're out there driving trucks overnight. They're working the late shift. They're working in sewers and guarding prisons. There's a lot of things they do that don't have the best kind of quality of life aspects. And why do they do it? Because it offers bigger paychecks. Women, on the other hand, tend to value having better schedules, having things that let them be at home at regular hours so they can be with their kids. And yeah, women place a higher value on having a pleasant work environment where they get to do something they find fulfilling, get to work with people they like, get to help people and work with kids. And those jobs tend to pay a little bit less. But women are aware of that, you know, whether they think about it, they consciously know it or not, they're making that choice and are aware of these trade-offs. And you're right, you know, it's not to say one is better than the other, but we all need to be free to make the choices that make sense for us.
I'm a skeptic, Carrie, and I'm always looking for ulterior motives. And I have to be honest with you, when I really look at this situation, you know, someone said to me today, do you think that a certain coach is going to leave a certain championship football team? And I said, no, I really don't think so. I think that generally people like to tear down those who are successful. And I think people like to try to dismantle the free market for some of those same reasons. It's jealousy, it's insecurity within themselves, it's their own lack of motivation to compete in the free market that makes some people want to tear down whole frameworks that work really well, such as capitalism, such as as the free market. And when I hear you talking about this, and I hear you talking about where the disparities do exist, being in jobs that maybe women wouldn't want, then I hear a sort of subtle attack on free market economics. I hear, well, let's make it equal. Let's make sure that there for every trash crew out there, there are 5 women and 5 men, despite the fact that we know women can't lift as much, and despite the fact that women are going to hate that job. Is that really equality? Is that really what women want? Or is this more about being manipulated by, I'm just going to say it straight up, a socialist mindset that wants to dismantle our free market economics?
Well, absolutely. I think one of the great ironies in this conversation is that a lot of the feminists who say that, who kind of dismiss this, you go to a women's studies class in college and they'll tell you, oh, we have all these patriarchy and the male ways of valuing things that puts all the value on money. But then here they are, and then they turn around and then they say, oh, it's not fair that women are making less money. But implicit in that is that they're saying that women are making the wrong choices. They don't want well-educated women to go work as librarians. They want them to chase the almighty dollar. They don't want women to say, you know what, I'm going to cut back and work 80% so I can be home with my kids when, at 4 p.m. when they get out of school. They don't want women to make those choices. But I think that women out there, it's interesting. I feel like anytime you have a conversation about this, with real people, instead of just hearing what politicians say, everybody knows this from their own experience. You talk to just about everybody out there, and they'll tell you stories about their sister, their friends, their mother, their brother, and they'll know these. You can see these throughout all walks of life. Of course, there are women out there trying to earn as much money as they can, who are real career-driven. But for every one story like that, you'll hear 5 or 6 of women who decided, you know what, I want to do something I love. I'm going to take time out because I really want to be there for my kids. And then you'll hear that men make sacrifices and say, I'm going to give up my dream job because I want to have a stable income to help provide for my family. So I'm going to do something I like less so I can have more income. These are choices that happen all the time, and they affect statistics. And again, I don't think we need to decide who's the bigger sob story here. It's just that this is people's outcome, and we shouldn't be focused on those statistics as long as people have equal opportunities to follow their own heart's desires.
This is precisely why, Carrie, why I say the whole idea of imposing the word fair on anything is really a travesty. And it's a travesty especially for those who are perhaps less equipped to protect themselves in certain ways. And I certainly do think that that is the natural order of things with women in some ways. And I think it's kind of cool that men, for example, have dominated in careers that women don't want. And men go ahead and take that role because women really don't want it. And it leads me to think about my own daughters possibly facing combat because of what the feminists have screamed about in terms of equality and fairness all of these years, and therefore are now really on the cusp of putting our daughters in combat. Is this where this is all leading?
Well, I do think that there is a bizarre lack of willingness to discuss men and women's strengths and natural predilections, and I think that there's reason for that, because obviously we want our girls to have the opportunity to go to school, and there were times when there were professions that were perfectly reasonable for women to want to pursue that were close to them, and I think we've moved so far beyond that, though, now we do have you can have all these conversations about how women are superior to men. Girls are better listeners, girls are better at dialogue, and are better at empathy, but you can almost never have a conversation about those natural strengths that men have. And of course, men do have some strengths that women are less have less developed capabilities. But there is a bizarre one-sidedness to that conversation, which isn't helpful for girls, and it isn't helpful for and it certainly isn't helpful for sons, because that's the other thing. Real people, I don't think, see this world or see the world through this lens of gender. I don't know if you have a son among your children, but I've got 3 girls and a boy. I care about what happens to boys, not just because I have a son, because someday I know my daughters are going to grow up and they're going to want to get married. They're going to want to find men out there who are nice guys with good prospects and have stable lives and families. We're all vested in everybody having good outcomes. We want men to flourish as well as we want women to flourish. We shouldn't have this battle of the sexes mentality.
Yeah, I think dividing people by whether it's by race or by gender or by income or any of that can be very destructive. And I do always see an ulterior motive, and I'm glad that you and the Independent Women's Forum brought some of this to our attention. It sounds to me like what you're really saying when it all comes down is, some things in life really aren't necessarily fair, but it does work out if people just operate by ethics within the free market, looking at supply and demand and what people are willing to do. I think God equips us differently as men and women, and I think we have to come to terms with that at some point. Carrie, I so much appreciate you being on the show, and I very much appreciate the work of the Independent Women's Forum, so I hope people will check you guys out. Carrie, Lukas, and the Independent Women's Forum, thanks for being with us today. Tell us real quick where we can find you.
Please come and see us at iws.org, and thank you so much for having me on today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Say hello to everyone there. Now, coming up, you all know that Professor Plum is very clued in and is really a finance and investing genius that I'm stealing a little bit from the Ray Lucia show and from Boomer's Brain Trust here on MBLN. But he has some strong opinions on the 4-letter F-bomb, and he's going to let them fly. Fair is the word of the day here at Smart Life with Dr. Gina. You stay tuned.